Hello everyone. Today we'll discuss about the extrahepatic biliary apparatus of the abdomen. Now first of all, what does the EHBA or the extrahepatic biliary apparatus consist of? Now it basically consists of 5 main parts. That is, first of all, this over here, as you can see, this is the right hepatic duct, the left hepatic duct, and this both actually merges and forms the common hepatic duct. The gallbladder, the cystic duct of the gallbladder, and the common bile duct. So right and left hepatic ducts, common hepatic duct, gallbladder, cystic duct, and the common bile duct. Okay, you may know that the cystic duct and the common hepatic duct merges and forms the common bile duct. Now what does EHBA actually do? Now the extrahepatic biliary apparatus actually collects the bile from the liver, okay, and stores it into the gallbladder. Okay, and then this gallbladder, by the way of the cystic duct and the common bile duct, actually gives this bile to the second part of the duodenum. Now we'll discuss about each and every part of the EHBA. Now first of all, the right and the left hepatic ducts. Now this right and the left hepatic ducts merges at the porta hepatis of the liver. Okay, now what is porta hepatis? Now porta hepatis is actually we can say the entry point and the exit point of all the structures, okay, is going in and out of the liver. For example, hepatic artery, or we can say bile duct, okay, or we can say all the nerves and the lymphatic actually come out and go inside the liver by the way of the porta hepatis. And the porta hepatis, at the boundary of the porta hepatis, the lesser omentum is actually attached, and by the lesser omentum, the liver is actually connected to the lesser curvature, or we can say the lesser omentum part or the lesser curvature of the stomach. So the right and the left hepatic ducts coming from the right and the left lobes respectively of the liver actually merges, okay, and come out, okay, by the way of the porta hepatis. Now very important, the arrangement of the structures at the porta hepatis from behind forwards. Okay, it is actually the portal vein, hepatic artery, and the bile duct. So you can remember by the mnemonics VAD. That means from behind forward we have the structure in the porta hepatis, that is there is a portal vein, hepatic artery, and the bile duct. Now next is the common hepatic duct. This is the common hepatic duct which is actually formed by the union of the right and the left hepatic duct, okay, coming from the right and the left lobe respectively of the liver. Now this common hepatic duct actually runs downwards, okay, for about 3 cm and is joined on the right side by an acute angle by the cystic duct of the gallbladder, and they both unite and form the common bile duct. Now in some people there is accessory hepatic duct also present. Now what is accessory hepatic duct? Now this is the extra hepatic duct apart from the common hepatic duct, okay, and it is basically present only in 15% of the subjects, and they usually arises from the right lobe of the liver, and they basically terminate either into the gallbladder or the common bile duct, or we can say in the common hepatic duct. Okay, and what is the clinical significance of this accessory hepatic duct? Now this accessory hepatic duct is basically responsible for the oozing of the bile from the wound after the cholecystectomy. Now what is cholecystectomy? It is basically the removal of the gallbladder. So therefore it is always better to use a drain to avoid the retention of the bile in the depth of the wounds. Now next is the gallbladder, right? Now this is the gallbladder. Now the gallbladder is actually a pear-shaped reservoir of the bile situated in the fossa, or we can say the gallbladder fossa, at the inferior part of the right lobe of the liver. Now the gallbladder can actually store around 30-50 ml of bile into it, and we have basically 3 parts of the gallbladder, that is the fundus part, the body part, and the neck part of the gallbladder. Now as you can see over here, this is the fundus part of the gallbladder. Now the fundus part is basically that part of the gallbladder that actually extends out from the inferior border of the liver. This is the inferior border of the liver. So this part actually extends outward from the inferior border of the liver. And if we talk about the specific location of this fundus part, then this part is actually present at the angle between the lateral border of the right rectus abdominis muscle and the 9th costal cartilage. This fundus part actually surrounded fully by the peritoneum, and at the anterior part of this there is anterior abdominal wall, and posterior to this there is beginning of the transverse colon. So remember, in front of this there will be anterior abdominal wall, and posterior to this there will be transverse colon. Now next part is the body part of the gallbladder. Now this body part of the gallbladder is basically present in the fossa of the gallbladder in the liver, in the right lobe of the liver. And the upper narrow end of this body part, okay, is continuous with the neck at the right end of the porta hepatis. Now the superior surface of the body, of this body is actually devoid of the peritoneum. If you remember, I told you the fundus part is fully covered by the peritoneum. Okay, but remember the upper part of this body or superior part of this is actually devoid of peritoneum and is adherent to the liver directly. So the inferior surface of this body is actually covered by the peritoneum and is basically related to the beginning of the transverse colon and to the first and the second part of the duodenum. So remember the fundus was in relation with the transverse colon and the anterior abdominal wall, while this inferior part of the body of the gallbladder is basically in relation with the transverse colon, first and the second part of the duodenum. Now next is the neck of the gallbladder. Now this is the neck, and the neck is actually the narrow upper end of the gallbladder, and it is basically situated near the right end of the porta hepatis. Somewhere over here there will be porta hepatis, and at the right of this there will be neck of the gallbladder. Now to become continuous with the cystic duct, this neck part of the gallbladder has to bend twice. That is, first of all, antero-superiorly and postero-superiorly, and after bending like this, it will become continuous with the cystic duct of the gallbladder. Now superiorly, the neck is basically attached to the liver by the areolar tissue in which the cystic vessels are embedded, and inferiorly, this neck part is basically related to the first part of the duodenum. Now in this neck part, okay, there is mucous membrane in the inside part, right? And the mucous membrane in the neck part is basically folded spirally to prevent any kind of obstruction to the inflow and the outflow, okay, of the bile. So there will be some kind of spiral structure, not only in the neck part but also in the cystic duct part also there will be mucous membrane spiral arrangement. We will discuss about that further in this video only, but just remember in the neck part there is spiral structure to actually avoid the obstruction, okay, of the passing in and out of the bile from the gallbladder. Now one more important term, there is a Hartmann's pouch. Now what is that? Now Hartmann's pouch is basically a pouch extending outward from the posteromedial wall of the neck of the gallbladder. Okay, and that pouch is basically having the clinical significance that the gallstone may lodge in this Hartmann's pouch. Now you may think that how the gallstones are basically formed inside the gallbladder. Right, now you may know that the gallbladder is basically having a lot of function in the body, that means it actually stores the bile, okay, and actually releases the bile to the duodenum as per requirement, right? And it also absorbs the water and concentrates the bile, okay, and it also absorbs the bile salts, which is actually in combination with the cholesterol. But what happens sometimes, because of the inflammation of the gallbladder, or we can say the cholecystitis, in the cholecystitis or the inflammation of the gallbladder, what happens is the bile salt is actually absorbed, okay, by the gallbladder, but the cholesterol is not able to be absorbed by the gallbladder. So, and the bile salt actually having the tendency to precipitate in the absence of the cholesterol. So what happens is the bile salt actually precipitates, okay, and forms the stones, and that stone is known as the gallstones, or we can say the stones in the gallbladder. Now next part of the EHBA is the cystic duct. Now this is the cystic duct. Now as you can see, I told you before only that in the neck part and in the cystic duct part we have the spiral wall or spiral mucus structure. Okay, this mucus structure is actually spirally arranged to prevent the obstruction of the in and out of the bile duct passage, right? And this spiral valve in the cystic duct is known as the spiral valve of Hister. Now a very important part, that is the bile duct. Okay, now this is the bile duct which actually formed by the union of the common hepatic duct and the cystic duct at an meeting at an acute angle. Now remember, in between these two ducts, okay, there is one lymph node known as the cystic node. Now according to the course of the bile duct is basically divided into four parts. That is the supraduodenal part, retroduodenal part, infraduodenal part, and the intraduodenal part. That means first of all, this bile duct is basically present above the duodenum. That's what is known as the supraduodenal part. Now this supraduodenal part of the bile duct is basically particularly located at the free margin of the lesser omentum of the stomach. Now you should know that the lesser omentum of the stomach is basically that structure which actually connects the liver and the lesser curvature of the stomach. Now you may know that on the free margin of the lesser omentum of the stomach, there are basically three important structures present on the free margin of the lesser omentum. That is the portal vein, hepatic artery, and the bile duct. So remember, these three structures are basically present at the free margin of the lesser omentum. Okay, and the bile duct, the supraduodenal part of the bile duct is basically present at the free margin of the lesser omentum. Now next part is the retroduodenal part. Now this part is basically present behind the first part of the duodenum. Now next part is the infraduodenal part. Now this lies behind or embedded in the head of the pancreas, as you can see. embedded inside the head of the pancreas. The fourth part, there is the intraduodenal part. Now this part is basically near the middle of the left side of the second part of the duodenum, okay, and basically comes in contact with the main pancreatic duct, okay, and accompanies it through the wall of the duodenum, okay, through the intraduodenal part, okay, and basically connects with this and actually opens at the major duodenal papilla by the way of the ampulla of the water. Now the relation of the bile duct, so it will be easier for you to understand that where is the particular location of which part of the bile duct, right? Now first of all, supraduodenal part. Now anteriorly this part is basically in contact with the liver, okay, as you can see. Now posteriorly there will be two structure, that is the portal vein and the epiploic foramen. Now why the portal vein is basically present at the posterior part, because only before only, that is in the porta hepatis part over here. From the backward to the forward, if we will come from the backward to the forward, there is a VAB structure. So of course in the posterior part there will be the portal vein, okay, and in the left part of this there will be the hepatic artery. So remember, in the posterior part there will be the portal vein, and the left part there will be a hepatic artery. Now in the retroduodenal part, basically in contact anteriorly with the first part of duodenum, posteriorly of course there will be inferior vena cava. Now on the left part of this there will be the gastroduodenal artery. Now this artery is actually a branch of the common hepatic artery, which is further a branch of the celiac trunk. Now of course in the infraduodenal part there will be the, in the anterior there will be the pancreas, the head of the pancreas, and the posterior there will be the inferior vena cava. And now this intraduodenal part of the bile duct actually combines with the main pancreatic duct, okay, and unites over here and forms an ampulla known as the ampulla of water, or the hepatopancreatic ampulla of water, okay, and actually opens up into the second part of the duodenum by the major duodenal papilla. Now the sphincter at this area. Now the sphincter of the bile duct, before this bile duct actually unites with the pancreatic duct, somewhere over here there will be sphincter known as the sphincter of Choledochus or the sphincter of the Boyden, okay. Now this sphincter is always present. Now there is one sphincter in the main pancreatic duct also somewhere over here, and that is known as sphincter pancreaticus. Now this sphincter pancreaticus is not always present in all the individuals. Now there is one more sphincter surrounding the hepatopancreatic ampulla, and that sphincter over here is known as the sphincter ampulla or the sphincter of Oddi, actually guards the opening and closing over here. Now the main blood supply of the bile duct and the gallbladder and the EHBA is basically two. There is the cystic artery and the superior pancreatico-duodenal artery. Now you may know that the cystic artery is actually a branch of the right hepatic artery, okay, and which is further a branch of the common hepatic artery, and which is further a branch of the celiac trunk. Now the superior pancreatico-duodenal artery is actually a branch of the gastroduodenal artery, which is further a branch of the common hepatic artery, which is further a branch of the celiac trunk. Now also the right hepatic artery forms a minor source of blood supply to the EHBA. Now about the venous drainage. Now the cystic vein and the portal vein, basically the hepatic vein also, basically to the venous drainage of the EHBA. For the lymphatic drainage, cystic node and the node on the anterior border of the epiploic foramen, that is the upper hepatic nodes and the lower hepatic nodes along with the pancreatico-splenic nodes, basically to the lymphatic drainage of the EHBA, and the very important nerve supply of the EHBA. Now to understand this nerve supply very easily, just look at this diagram. This is the cystic artery over here, okay, and around the cystic artery there will be the cystic plexus of nerves, okay, and the cystic plexus of nerves is basically derived from the hepatic plexus, okay, and the hepatic plexus basically receives the fibers from celiac plexus, right and left vagi or the vagus nerve, and the right phrenic nerve, okay. So just remember, cystic plexus derived from the hepatic plexus, again, which is actually the hepatic plexus is actually receiving fibers from the celiac plexus, right and left vagus nerve, and the right phrenic nerve. And also remember, the nerve plexus around the pancreatico-duodenal artery is basically supplying the lower part of the bile duct. Okay. Now the very two important thing, that is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nerve supply. Now for the parasympathetic, remember that the parasympathetic nerves are basically motor and the vasomotor to the musculature of the gallbladder and the bile duct. Okay. While the parasympathetic nerve fibers for the sphincter, they are inhibitory. Okay, but the sympathetic fibers from the T7, T8 and T9 are vasomotor to the sphincters, and they are motor to the sphincter, remember. Okay, so parasympathetic are inhibitory to the sphincter, that is the sphincter of Oddi, sphincter of Boyden, sphincter of Choledochus, and the pancreaticus sphincter. Okay, they are inhibitory. Okay, while the sympathetic is vasomotor and motor to the sphincters, means they will allow the opening of the sphincters. So this was all about EHBA. We'll discuss about the applied expert and clinical expert of the EHBA in a further next video. So hope you are doing well. Thank you so much.